Okay, so what we're going to do now is detail our weapons and our armor. So we're going to start off by detailing our weapons, primarily with this big weapon here. This is the primary weapon that will get the most attention. Then we'll move on to the smaller weapons, and then after that we'll begin our armor. Now the reason we do that in that order is because if we do our armor first, then we have to make holes in it and such so that we can fit our cables and pipes into the armor. Whereas if we make them all first and then make our armor around it, it's going to give us a much better result. Okay, so we're going to start with our big cannon here, so we'll isolate this. And first thing I'm going to do is just separate out all the different components. Okay, so we'll start off with the barrel here. Just going to delete the end there because I don't really like how that's looking. And add in a subdivision surface. We'll sharpen up the end here. Delete that vertex in the middle. And sharpen up this piece here as well. Might even extend that a little and move it further along. Yeah, so we get something looking like this so far. Next step is to duplicate that end piece, extrude and scale it out. And what I'm trying to make is this segment here. So we've got, sort of comes out and we've got these holes in the middle. That's going to be quite easy to make. Okay, so we'll extrude this out. That's that far, and then once again we'll extrude it, scale it up to get that ledge there, and extrude it out once more. Should be roughly 3 even sections, but it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, I'm going to add a crease of 1 on this side. And the reason for that is I want to apply my subdivision surface. Now it might seem a little weird, but to cut holes in it and get the holes looking nice, we really do need to sort of get the general shape and then apply the subsurf, and then we'll tweak it a little and then we'll apply another subsurf on top to smooth it out, just to get that hole looking exactly how I want it. You can do it without doing it this way, but this way is just a little easier in my opinion. So I'll just go through first and we will smooth out this edge and just apply that level 1 subdivision surface to sharpen that piece up. Also going to put in a solidify modifier. And the default of 0.01 should be fine. Might actually just delete these vertices and we'll shrink that one in a moment. Okay, so just come along here and optimize your mesh a little. There's no point having so many divisions in here that we aren't going to use. So you can see this many divisions is perfectly fine. Alright, so we've got into side view, face select mode, and we just want to select a rough region of how much we want. take a look at that, make sure it's not too much. If it's too much, we can come in and use Alt-Shift right-click to remove some of the selection. And what we're going to do is go delete those faces, slide up these edges, likewise we will slide just these ones down, about there. Repeat that on this side, just giving it a nice smooth fall off there, by sliding one halfway down and then sliding it the rest of the way with two selected. Alright. Okay, so setting the creasing up, we'll give it a nice touch around there. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to go and create a vertex group. We can assign this a weight of 1. This area a weight of 0.5. And then the region in the middle will be a weight of 0.75. If it will let me click. There we go. And this is just going to be solidify weights. Oops, solidify weights. So if we go and select that in the panel there, we can increase that thickness till we get about what we want. .024 should about do it. And you can see we have a nice fall off happening in here. So if we enable then edit mode, you can see we probably need to just these ones. Yep, these ones here have not been, I did not click assign on those. So I'll select this one, perhaps a 0.6 for that. And there we go. So it gives us a nice fall off in there to get the gradient. So we get those several levels of thickness. Alright, I'm happy with that. So I'm going to click smooth. And notice that smooth shading causes some issues around here. Don't worry about that, it's not important. You can come in and extrude this, scale it in a little, and then pull it out, which will fix up those issues a little. But as I said, it's not really necessary. So you can also come and turn these creases down a little. Alright, so something like that, and that'll be fine. That was everyone on the front there as well. So that was that one. Come in here and we can add in a extra little bit of detail. So for that, I'm just going to create 2 edge loops here, extrude, scale them out a little. And we'll just sharpen this up a bit. Alright, and this gives us a nice little notch we can move wherever we like. And yeah. Okay, now because there is 2 of these, what we need next is we need a region that will connect them. So it's easy enough to do. We want to have just a piece that comes around the 2 of them and sort of holsters them together. So I'm just going to select this edge loop and this edge loop. This one. Shift D, separate by selection, grab it, and we'll remove that solidify modifier because we don't want that. Well, actually we might use that. Right. Okay, and what we're going to do is delete this one, delete the entire bottom half as well, make sure that mirror is checked to Y, let's go apply rotational scale, check on Z, there we go. Alright, and we'll just merge those ones together. Alright, something like so. Okay, and with that one there in place, we also want to have a clip. So I'm going to cursor to selected, add mesh, add in a cylinder with 6 vertices set to a triangle fan. And I want to have that somewhere about here. Move it straight through the mesh. And just something like so. And now that's just a bracket to keep them together, and yeah, just look very bracket-like. Okay, so coming back to the rear, we bring over our reference again, which is this one. I want to focus on this section now, and I'm just going to grab a drink of water. Alright, okay, so this section, the barrel comes in, gets a bit wider, and goes to the back. Oop, probably shouldn't close that. Oh well. Okay, so we're going to grab this piece. We're just going to keep it going in here. Maybe it gets wider about here. And we'll take it all the way to the back. And we just round it off. Okay, so we'll just sharpen up these pieces a little. Make sure it's looking roughly how we want it. I'm going to scale shift Y and just thicken this up a little, get them so that they are almost touching, but we'll turn off clipping and merge on our mirror so we can scale them through and they won't touch, just in case. Alright. Screw this up along Z, scale it along Z to 0, and we can delete those faces. And add an edge loop over this side as well. So we get this thing looking like such. And that allows some room on the top where we can have a couple of shells. So perhaps this region would be back a little bit further. And yeah. Alright, so that is looking about right for the barrel section. Now we get to move on into the next section. First thing we do, subsurface modifier. And open up that reference again. So I can look, I just want to model this section here. So as you can see, it's actually just got holes in it. They're not extrusions, they're just holes, and we're going to add a solidifier modifier over it to get that look. So I'll move that over onto my other monitor. I'm going to separate it out. And get my tablet working again. Alright. Okay, so something like so. Vertex mode. And I just realized I haven't turned on my screencast keys. Alright, as you can see, I have these buttons showing up, which means my Wacom driver has decided to turn off. Alright, cursor to selected. Extrude that and scale that one down, and we get a bit more of a sharper piece in there. We just want to repeat that on the rear. Extrude and scale in. Alright. Just going to hide these segments underneath it for now, so we can just work on this one. Okay, we'll add a piece in about here, and might also widen this up a little. Cool, something like that. Okay, so back to the segments. The hole in the bottom will go all the way back to here. Alright, and it's going to be about this wide. And I'm going to come in here and triangulate these. And rotate selected edge on that one. Now the reason I'm doing that is because if we add in another edge loop around here, it's going to start going all over the place and it's just not pretty. Okay, rotate edge. We're going to delete that face. Going to add in a solidify modifier. Just to get a piece showing up like that. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to leave that as spherical for now, and I'm going to apply my subsurf in a moment and get that harsh shape that I want. So for that, of course, just going to fill that in and work on these holes along the side. Okay, so we want to have quite a few holes along the side. I might have not quite as many as what they have in the picture, but I will have a few, like so. Okay, we also need to add in our edge loops. Once again, we will triangulate these. There we go. Unchecking beauty seems to work quite well. Alright, and we're also going to want to have a section along the top, about there-ish, and yeah, about there should do. And I can bring these in a little, so if I just center the object of choice for the mirror there. And I'll leave that one for now. So I can bring these in a little, just so that they come in enough that I can make a decent extrusion there. Okay, so that's about it for that one. So what I'm going to do now is apply that subsurf. And you notice we get a lot of divisions in here, so what you need to do is go in and clean them up. It's also created a bit of a mess around here, so it's a good idea just to clean that up as well, just so we can get these nice smooth curves and cut holes into it. Alright, so I've gone ahead and created all those holes there, which is not an overly difficult task to do, just a little bit tedious. Got a massive hole in the bottom. That there's because we will be having some sort of pivot attached. We'll be having some internal beams inside here to keep it together. And I've also gone ahead and extruded out this portion and doubled it over itself. We'll add an extra edge loop here, just to sort of give it the extra level of detail. And we can also come in here, slide those up and just make it look a little more harder. There we go. Okay, so this is coming along quite nicely now. What we need to do is start working on some of this stuff in here. So on this one, you can see these are actually intersecting each other now, which is not good. One thing we do not want is these to be able to intersect. Okay, so I'm just going to delete that portion at the top. Cursor to selected, and what we're going to do is go scale shift Y around that point. And we'll select the ones at the back as well. And just go on top view. And we want them to be almost touching, but not quite. Cool, so something around there will be great. Alright. Okay, so something like that. So what we can do is add in a few notches along here. Something like so. And by a notch, I mean just basically scale these ones out, not the ones along the top. Yeah, something like this. Scale shift Y, and we're just going to thicken them up a little. Alright. Flatten them back up along the top and get a few interesting notches, and just to make them stand out a little, crease them up. And we'll crease up these ones as well. Remember, if you're going to be exporting to an external renderer, don't use creases. Creases are great, but renderers like Mental and V-Ray and Octane, I believe, don't support creases, so they'll come out being all smooth like, and that's not what you want. Well, actually, they do support creases, but I believe the Blender exporter doesn't. So yeah, do keep that in mind. Okay. Round that off at the back a little. Alright, and this is looking quite good like this. So what we're going to do now is add in some supports along the bottom. So I'm just going to Shift S, cursor to selected, and actually what I'm going to do is select one of these, I'm just going to use this as a base for any pieces I do, or base for the first piece at least anyway. So just scale it in a little. I'm going to throw those creases up a little and get something like so. Alright, just make it look a little more interesting. Alright, and let's go ahead and we're going to duplicate this one down the back and have quite a large one back here. Alright, I might actually just bring this forward as well and have one approximately about here. Alright, so that's looking pretty good at the moment. So what we've got left to do now is these side pieces here, these little, I have no idea what these are, but they look cool. A few pipes and such to go around. I want to have just a cap on the top, which will look like it holds extra ammunition, and that can look nice and fancy. Have a little clip, a little latch, so it can be taken off and loaded before it goes out. And we're just going to have a few pipes in here, and then we'll go in and we'll model the base. And yeah, hopefully that won't take too much longer. I'll try not to take too long. Perhaps at about an hour I'll skip ahead to all the weapons done and we'll start on the armor. Just going to grab a drink. Alright. So I'm just going to delete that one and we'll work on one, and we'll use that to do the rest of them. Okay, so bring that one to there. And I'm going to rotate this around the Y 22.5 degrees. Alright. So just creating some sort of notch on the end here, which will just assist making it look cool. Just these two, pull them out, and these ones here as well. And just noticed that we will need to come in and delete these vertices there. And just fill in this section. Triangle can be very good for this kind of stuff. Triangles are horrible for topology, but they definitely do have their uses. Considering everything gets triangulated anyway at the end, it's nice to be able to determine where your triangles are placed. Okay, so see, it's a nice subtle effect having these pieces come in, but what that means is that we don't have to worry about doing any crazy topology to get that looking smooth and these looking smooth, and it gets a overall nice result. So I'm just going to sharpen that one, and now it just looks like it's been clipped in there like so. Okay. So I might just go Shift S, cursor to selected, and what I'm going to do is copy the Y value, to selected, paste it in, and origin to 3D cursor. And now what we can do is we can, in the edge loop there, delete those ones, add in a mirror going the other way as well, and now we get that nice sort of effect on both sides. Okay, so let's make this a little more interesting. just going to use creases now to sharpen up these edges. Alright. Just placing these creases wherever you want, basically. Crease them all the way up. We get sort of a nice extrusion that's, yeah, it looks pretty much how we want it to look. And possibly also crease these ones up as well. See how that looks. Yep, definitely defines it a lot more. Okay, now that looks like it means something. I have no idea what it means, but that's not important. Okay, so I've got those bits clipped on, and I might just sharpen up the end a little. Alright, so something like that will do for now. So let's work on a cap along the top. So we're going to Shift D, duplicate this, scale it on the Y and move it across along the X, separate it out, and we'll just delete that side for now, and just extrude this along the X, turn on clipping and merge, and we will just delete the ones in the middle. Okay, let's extrude this up. Okay, so remember this is a cap. So I want to scale this in a little and pull it in this way. And looks like it should be a little larger. So we can possibly make it about this large, which is quite intense to have on the top there, but that's alright. Okay, so there is enough room for extra rounds. Add a bit of detail into this one. The little details always make it better. Okay, so what I'm actually doing now is I'm making sort of like a bullet shaped round on these. Okay. I'm just focusing on the shape at the moment. And yeah, we'll sharpen up the side. So stick that one out a little. I'm going to grab these ones, I'm going to pull them out quite a bit more. And then we'll bring these in as well. And we get a sort of a bullet inside. Okay, so just going to refine one of these and then we will duplicate it across and we'll have two. So I'm assuming this is the size of a round that would go through here. I don't think it's overly important, but it's a nice touch. Yeah, I think that's going to be fine like that. So what we're going to do now is select this, Shift D on the Y, and that bridges it quite nicely actually. I will, however, scale these in a little just to make it look a little more gradual, and let's have equal edge counts. What do we got? Okay, there we go. Alright, now just to join up this in here, so delete that edge loop, fill in this hole, calculate those normals. Alright, this is definitely coming along nicely. So on the back here we want to have sort of like a little latch that can be pulled down or pulled up, or whatever angle it needs to be pulled. Alright. So what I want is just to have this a little sharper, so just delete those edge loops and we will fill them in afterwards. And I don't really need an edge loop around here. I added it in so I could add a hole underneath, but it's now that I've got it here, it's really not necessary. Okay, so we'll fill this in. And there we go. So that fill actually worked quite well. I'm going to go cursor to selected. I'm going to go add in a cylinder. Fill type will be triangle fan. Alright. RX90, scale this down, and what I'm doing is just making a little cap on the side. add a little bit of a notch on this one. Okay. Alright, now it's coming up quite close to an hour now, so what I'm going to show you before I wrap up the weapons is the one last thing is pipes. So I've showed you how to add in little details like these bullets on the side, these panels, holes. The only last thing on my list to cover is pipes, and then I will skip ahead and then I'm going to go give you a tour around a whole bunch of weapons that I'm about to build. Okay, so pipes are very easy. They're so easy in fact that there's no excuse for not having them. Add in a Bezier curve, you can delete that one, Shift S selection to cursor, and scale it down and then extrude it out along the X. Okay, so this is a curve. I'm going to set it to full. Adjust our bevel depth. And a resolution of 1 is normally fine, and a resolution of 6 up here is also normally fine. So you can come in and you can crank that up to 2 if you want, but it's not usually necessary. Okay. Alright, so you position them wherever you need to. And then you just extrude them around wherever you want, really. Okay, so RX90. And we can just rotate that around the Y and get it a bit of an angle, or the alternative is if we scale this one down. Alright. And some bends. You can adjust your depth as well. Maybe make it a little smaller. Alright, and we just kind of wrap them around our mesh like so. And to duplicate them, you just add an extra one. And just give them a relatively even spacing, it's not overly important. And you just end up with a couple of pipes like so. So what I want you guys to do is cover your meshes, cover your weaponry with pipes, have them going all over the place, a lot of balls and little cylinders sitting around, boxes, anything you like really. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back in a moment with some finished weapons. That way the tutorial won't drag on so. Alright, so we are now time-lapsing this section, and what I'm doing is I am adding in some little modules inside the weaponry which will just add the extra bit of detail, and yeah, just scaling them out along normals, no fancy tricks here. And to sharpen up the edges there I used a mean crease. Another tip is to use linked duplicates when creating these. It will make it much easier when texturing. And you can just rotate them along the axis that they look the same, in this case the y-axis, and it will sort of give them a bit of variation in the textures. Another section on the back is the same as what was seen in the reference photo, and it just seems to look like a shell dispenser of sorts. So I've connected it in to look something like one of those. Rotation for these segments here are done in object mode, not edit mode, and that will allow us to animate these later on. And on the side, just connected it into the segment there. It doesn't need to be proper, it doesn't need to look like it would work. It's just so that if the user does happen to glance at it from one of those angles, it's not going to look, you're not going to see those edges there. Similar as if you look on the Star Wars pod racer movies, sometimes you get an odd glance at a pod racer and you can see where the segments actually don't exist. Right, so this is just the base of the weapon. And just creating a couple of little panels on the side, just to make it a little more interesting. Just extrusion on the front. You notice we use quite a few edge loops on these models. It's not, you can optimize these by using a lot less edge loops, but it's not overly important. We have a lot of room to spare. Okay. So just resizing the guns a little there. And for the section at the back, I want to have sort of a couple of hydraulic links so that we can have it tilt up and down and move around a little, which will definitely help accent the recoil action when this is animated. Right, just extruding a portion on the bottom there to connect it into a hydraulic link. You notice I'm not spending a lot of time lining things up and having them look perfect, as these here are shown from, they're quite hard to see, they're hidden behind a lot of machinery. There's no point having them highly detailed. And just using a mirror there to line them up and have two of them there. just throwing a couple of notches in to actually make them look like they are connected. And they will definitely look good when it's animated and textured. Just sharpening up the edges of that panel there, and creating a couple of little pieces on the side, similar to how we did on the one on top, and just helps give that extra level of detail. I'm not quite happy with how this top section is looking, so I'm messing around with a few ideas here, and just connecting those segments up. It's not the best way to do it, by the way. The easiest way is to delete all the inner sections and just extrude it inwards again. But when you're messing around with ideas, it is quite easy just to adjust things. So just a section at the back there where we'll plug some pipes into. And the front section I've extruded inwards, and I'll be adding some vents into there later. And for these pipes, the best way is just to have them go around all over the place. Have them look like they are connected, they're not just floating around in the middle of nowhere. And it is a good idea to have them look like they do have a purpose behind them. But as I say, just throw them around. They don't have to be perfect. And what I have here is just a box. So something that we use a lot when creating vehicles is we just have a few little boxes around, and it just makes it look much more interesting and gets you to have that extra level of detail, and it also is a good end point for your pipes. So if you've got a pipe, not quite sure where to end it, or if you want to split a pipe into 2 or 3 or 4, you can just add in one of these little boxes, and the box looks really important. It looks like it's there for a reason, and maybe it has some technical stuff inside it, and yeah, that's just what we do with it. Alright, so just messing around some pipes on the underside. Probably won't see the underside too much, except from a distance, but it is a good idea to have some decent amount of pipes under there, because that is where the most pipes will be in an object. Now, something else that I'm doing here is having pipes that twist around another pipe. It really does add a massive amount of appeal. It takes a little bit of effort to get pipes that wrap around correctly, but when you do, it does look quite good. And another thing that you saw just briefly is the pipes connecting into another pipe. And you can go and add some connectors, and I have done that in the past for some more high profile pipes. But for ones like these, you can just plug them straight into another one, and unless they're seen right up close, that's perfectly fine. So just duplicating that pipe over and adding a few more pipes. See that this does take quite a while, adding in lots of pipes and making it look like the pipes are there and being done exactly how they're supposed to be done. The speed that this time lapse is 800%, so yeah, you can see that I spent a total of about 2 hours I think on this entire section. I think, yeah. Something like that anyway. Right, so there's some pipes for the hydraulics. Hydraulics and pipes go together really well. You find that when they bend around and have hydraulic fluid flowing through them, and when you can animate that, it really does show in your animations and does make it feel a lot more realistic. Alright, so just working on the machine gun now. Machine guns are quite high poly, as you'll soon see, but they do add quite a nice touch to your model. Other note is, if you're worried about all these edge loops that you're adding into things to sharpen them up and make them look good, you can use edge splits, you can use various amount of techniques, but if they're going to be seen up close, like these machine guns will likely be seen quite close, edge loops are the best way to get that done. It just makes it look so much more realistic, just having that slight bevel on the edges, and that can't be achieved through edge split. Our section on the side is just a little sort of the cocking mechanism. So that for a machine gun they do click back and forth quite frequently, and having that little bit slide back and forth really rapidly is very good. A cool tip there is, as you saw with the those little nuts, how I added that bevel. If you go into Control E and bevel with just selected edges, you can bevel your mesh on just one axis. I go into that a little more in depth, I think, in the interior tutorial. Alright, so on the bottom we just have a mounting bracket, and just working on the barrel now. And once again, using that bevel technique to get that sharper edge, it just makes it look a little more interesting. Alright, now I play around with a few ideas here. I do end up going for a single barreled mechanism, but you can go for the 3 barrels. 3 barrels, it does look quite cool, but yeah. Another thing that I'm doing is adding in the holes. This is something that I spend a couple of attempts getting right. Yeah, we will be using just an array system to duplicate that one out. So just using the option there to sphere, which will make those circular, and just giving a bit of a twist. You just notice that I had skipped out a segment, which led for an odd look, so I just fixed that one up. And just using a solidify allows us to get to that bit of thickness on there as well. just messing around with the bolts a little, making them look a little better placed. And with that one there done, we can mount that to the vehicle. And I chose to mount that on the other side and then use a mirror. It's up to you which side you put it on. And all of those lines that you see connecting objects, those are relationship lines, and you can turn them off under your properties menu under display relationship lines. And by properties menu I'm referring to the N menu, as you might know it a little better as. So this one here is a dual machine gun layout, so we do need a separate bracket for this. So here I am filling in the holes and bringing it up and then bringing it straight across to the other one. Right, now we're just going to be working on these rockets. Now the rockets are very simple to do. So basically a cube with a bevel on it, and we are just going to create some holes inside it. I'll be using a mirror and need to do that. Now it's important there that you see that I added in the extra edge loops in the center. Now that will stop you getting any six-sided poles. And I didn't like the way that that rocket was looking, so I decided to create it from scratch. As the rocket's done, all we need to do now is these flamethrowers and a few mounts. So flamethrowers are quite cool to do. We've basically got the main barrel for them, and then we've got this little igniter down the bottom. Now for this, I decided to use cylinders, I believe, and sort of just extrude it around. And I believe in the end I opted for a rotated cylinder, yes. I had a problem there with the loop tools not working. If you find that problem, then all you need to do is connect up one segment first and then use loop tools on the rest of them, and it should connect just fine. See, the last one there did not connect just fine, but it worked alright. So I got some final touch-ups there to that segment. And for this one, I decided to have the outgoing section on the edge, where I could then have the ammunition going into. Right, so what I'm doing is I'm having an array along a curve, which will allow us to have these segments just duplicated the whole way along. And I didn't have anywhere to put this, so what I did is I used the section there and made sort of like a compartment inside there to use, and we bent this out using the solidify modifier and just sort of stored our ammunition in there. Just sort of made it a little bit easier for us. You can see I haven't put a lot of effort into the compartment in here, so not really necessary. Just needs to look like there is a section in there. And now you can see all that bevelly stuff. It's just not merging correctly. And use the bevel on that to get it to look nice and smooth. And I just used a mirror to get it over to the other side. What I'm doing here is I'm adding in a pipe for the flamethrowers, just so that they can connect to the fuel tank via a box. And just kind of shoving it around, going straight through that floor panel there, because we're going to redo that soon anyway. Alright, now fixing up the fuel tank there. Notice that it was intersecting, which isn't good. Alright, now we're just working on a couple of brackets to attach it. And just kind of linking it through there, just making it look sort of half-heartedly stuck on, which is the kind of effect that we want. And that piece, I just stuck it straight into the mechanics there. Alright, so just adding a few more pipes. And yeah, it's about to wrap up. Okay, welcome back. What I've done is I've gone through and created a few weapons. So as you can see, our scene's getting quite dense now. So I turn off Simplify. We have a total of just over 1.1 million faces in the scene. So we've still got a while to go. We're probably going to end up somewhere between 5 and 10 million faces. So no worries there. But it does create a lot of lag, especially if you're like me and working on a laptop. Currently I'm using a Alienware M17X with dual GTX 260s, which is nowhere near enough to power a high poly scene. So yeah, just having a look at the weapons. If I just go over onto my weapons layer here, you can see I've modelled a couple of machine guns, like so, and these are fairly simple, just an array set to a specific length, and I've used a empty that's been rotated just to get that rotated effect. Now this might be a few too many holes for you. It's up to you how many you want or what style. It's completely customizable to your preference. But yeah, that's what I liked, so that's what I did. Okay, on the back you can see I have quite a few pipes and little nodules and things in here. And we also have the rear facing machine guns. Their little piece here is going into the center. Now I've assumed that this is going to be some form of ammunition holder, so I can store up the ammunition tools and things in here, and it'll just feed directly into that. And we'll sculpt in some destruction on that later. And of course, finally, we have these rockets on the side, and well, rockets, wherever my rockets have gone. So on one of these layers, there it is. Okay, so yeah, nothing overly complex. Now you will notice that there is no fine wires, there's no little boxes and things like that at this stage. That is something that comes in later. So once we've finished creating all our armor and done our interior, we'll come in for a final detail pass, so we'll come and add in all the fine little wires and details and things like that. And we'll do that before we get into the destruction phase. Okay, so this is our vehicle at the moment. This is our panels with our armor. Now, the armor is just a little bit clunky at the moment. It's not exactly what I would call... Why do I have two of those? I don't know. Seems it's just this one on it. Anywho, so I separate that out and delete the rest. Okay, anywho, so yeah, this is not suitable armor. It's got that nice feel to it, but it's just not quite what I call up to scratch. So what we're going to do is add in some subdivision surfaces, play around with our edge loops, and see what we can do to get this looking much nicer. And another thing we're going to focus on is getting a flow of creases going down the side. Give it that sort of like Tron feel, but in a mechanical way. So you can see we've got an edge loop that comes up through here, and we follow it along through this one, across and up and over here, and we can do another one over there. And that stripe, when seen from a distance, the speaker highlights, will give it sort of like a snake feel and make it look a lot more interesting. So let's get into it. Make sure you've got your modifiers panel open and your concept art. So we've got this, not fantastically drawn, but kind of what we want it to look like, concept down here. So let's come in. We're going to do a value of 0.8 on these. There we go, if it lets you click on it. And add in a subdivision surface level 2. Like so. And you notice we've got simplify on set to level 1. So we won't see the second level. no difference there. It's just the first level that we're going to see, and that's enough for now. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to separate off this top section. I want to make it look like it's sort of been welded on. So if we pull over a concept here, well, not a concept, this is a photo of the Death Race vehicle. That's the kind of look that I am going for. Okay. So, first thing to do, actually before we sharpen anything up, we need to make sure we've got it set to about what we want, which it is. So, let's just sharpen this up. On all the sides, and that gives us a nice hole in the center there. Okay, now we'll sharpen up this piece in the middle, so I'm going to extrude this, scale it, pull that in, and get a sort of a extrusion going on there. Okay, add in some edge loops. And I'm just going to merge this, merge it last. Set the shading to smooth and see what we've got. Okay, so yeah, that is about how we want the base to look. And just checking the thickness, make sure it's not too thick. We want it to be quite thick, but it's still, remember this is armor. So yeah, something like this would be fine. And I might even that didn't work. Anyways, what I'm thinking of doing is I'm just going to bring back these cuts here. And I'm going to create an edge loop down the side here. And we're going to create a little bit of a bevel up here. So make it nice and smooth, looking nice like that. And then we select an edge, Control E, bevel, and then we adjust that bevel down. And bring it up a little. And we get that sort of a subtle crease happening there. And the sharper the angle, the sharper the crease will look. Alright, so we can scale them along X if you want them to be sharper. It's entirely up to you. Okay, so jumping into the next one. Crank these over a little. And we're going to shrink down that subsurface fraction. Okay, so we get something looking like this at the moment. You can have a little bit of intersection here, not too much intersection by the way, but you can have a little. So we want this to look like it has been welded on. So something like that is good. Okay, we'll add in another bevel. Bevel is one of my favourite tools when creating hard body surfaces, as you may have noticed. Because it gives us a very nice crisp looking edge. Alright, and that is one panel done. Okay, so save that. Make sure you save regularly. Okay, we'll come into the next section. Now these have all already been separated out. What you can do is you can jump into an object and go P, separate by loose parts. And I've already done this because I started recording this before and then crashed. So they already separated out. So we're going to add in some edge loops along here. I'm going to sharpen this up. I'm going to make sure that they are all in the position you want first. I have already done this, so no biggie there. We also want to make sure we add in that subsurf. Oops. Don't do that. And we'll sharpen these up, and I'm going to go through and check that they're all looking okay. Okay, so I've got them looking like this at the moment. And I might just take that solidified down a fraction. Set it right down to about there. And what we're going to do is we are going to bring these out and try and stop them from intersecting with one another and other objects, because intersections are bad, very bad. Not overly bad, you can have some intersections, but really avoid them as much as you can, especially if they are in direct line of sight. Oh, and one other thing, I'll start my screencast keys. Very important thing I forget very often. And we'll tweak that end bit when we get to the front bumper. Okay, so jump into edge mode, select some edges, these ones here, Control E, bevel, and bevel them up, something like that. Hit shading smooth. Shading smooth is a good way to see how beveled something is, and it also means that we can now see which ones we have done and which ones we have not, in case you had any confusion, which you shouldn't have done, but there you go. Okay, now this one here is coming inside, so I need to pull this out. Make sure it is outside the door. I want to have this one here coming over top of this one. So I'm going to bring them out and give it a little bit more room. And we'll just push it in there. Once again, make sure we turn that solidify down. Make it look believable. It doesn't matter if it's intersecting a little, like this much is fine, because you won't see that. If you do, you're probably looking way too closely at the mesh. Depends how close the close-ups are, I suppose. That will be defined by your art director. They'll tell you in advance, usually, they'll tell you in advance, I should say, how close the close-up shots are going to be. Bring this one down here. And in that subsurf, optimal display. And an extra layer over through there. As you can see, I'm trying to line up these pieces here so we can have it flow across the model. So we have one through here, there, and there. Okay, so that is about right for now. Sharpen them up, see how it's looking. Got a bit of intersection coming in over here, so we'll pull this one out. Just add a little more. Okay, and now we'll select these three edge loops. Bevel those. Oh, no, that was an edge split. Bevel. Edge split is another useful tool that we use quite often, but yeah, bevel is the one that we want at the moment, and we get something like this happening. Which is looking very nice, and you can see how those curves come across the whole thing. Now if we had a material set up, we could adjust the specularity and see how that looked, but we don't. So what I'm going to do is pull that out a little. Move over to the next one. Optimal display, and start positioning this one up. Now I want to have this one here on top of the door as well, so the door looks very barricaded in. Now it doesn't have to be perfectly on top of the door, but as long as it's looking cool. Okay, once again we'll turn down that thickness a little. It's just getting a little too thick. It's good to have varying amounts of thickness over the mesh. something like this is cool. Yeah, I'm happy with that. So with that in place, start sharpening these up. Probably see how this would go with a crease. And over here, shading smooth and see how we're going. Now getting some funny stuff happening down here. So that fixed that. Alright. Now Control E, bevel these edges. And we get another panel. So we're working our way through quite nicely. So be a bit of armour here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to time lapse my way around the rest of these main pieces, and then we'll continue on with the next step. Alright, so just working my way through these segments. So it doesn't take particularly long, as you can see. Alright, now split this section up so that we can have a portion curving around our reinforcement bars, or roll cage bars, I suppose they are. And just creating a bit more of a roof structure on the top. So quite important is if you don't have any reinforcement on the top, then it just looks out of place. And just sharpening up there, making it look very pinched. Yeah, I didn't like that front bumper quite so much, so I decided to create a new one. I also decided to have some kind of a fang-like structure on this. Just sort of a bit of a playful thing, just give it a bit more personality. As if this thing was built by a person, not by machines. You can also add in some things on the top as well. It's entirely up to you. And of course make it unique on both sides. If it looks the same on both sides, it's quite obvious. not a lot to it, as you can see. It's just adding component on component, making it look like these pieces have been taken from different vehicles, taken from maybe bits of sheet metal, even quite thick and heavy. Make sure this section looks unique as well. Just a bit of a redirecting edge flow with the good old knife tool. And I used the smooth tool there just to smooth it out. I found that the sections were getting a little too close together. Now we're actually going to completely redo this vent structure later on, so don't worry too much about this. I believe in the texturing section I've realised that we actually had no way for someone to get into the vehicle. So you can feel free to do that now. You can add in a little hinged door, or you can jump forward to the texturing section and you'll find it there as well. Alright, and this is pretty much done. Okay, so we now have an armoured vehicle. So it's not a lot, but it definitely helps show the fact that this is armoured. This is got a bunch of modules stuck onto it. Threw some kind of like teeth on the front there just for a bit of personalisation. It's up to you what you do on it. And an important thing is that these are not the same the left and the right. Now they look similar. So just driving along and just panned around like this, you could easily say that they are the same, but they are actually just subtly different, as though the person who created this wanted it to look the same, but didn't. Like, if the part fits, it fits. He's not going to cut it up to make it look exactly the same as the other side. So I've gone through and we've made it just subtly different from side to side, but kept it the same sort of shape. Okay. So if we zoom in, you can see we've got a bit more geometry coming around these now. Still cutting through the centre line there, but that's perfectly fine. So I might adjust that a little. Make that go in front of it. Alright, so just pulling these in front a little. So something like that gives it a bit more nicer feel to it. So yeah, this is the armor is pretty much done at this stage. What we're going to do is we're going to fix up a couple of things. Going to attach these guns at the front. We're going to make a hole in this panel here, and we'll keep it back up of that, very important. And yeah, we'll just do a few bits and pieces like that. Later on in the detailing stage, we're going to add in some finer details like rivets and bolts and just various bits and pieces like that to really bring it together. But for now, this is the level of armor that we want. Okay, so let's go ahead and we will add in some brackets up here. So I'm going to turn off the parts I don't need, namely the mechanics, the interior and the wheels and the engine. And that'll speed up our viewport a little. Okay. Now I'm going to duplicate this, move that to layer 20, which as you will remember is our junk layer. And that way we can go back to it should we need to. Okay, so I'm going to have a flat piece up here. So to do that, I'm just going to go, we'll go cursor selected roughly about here. Add in a plane, scale it down, and move over a little. Okay, yes, somewhere about there should be fine. We'll just extrude that down, give it a bit of depth. And yeah. Alright, so let's join that into this one. And we can either have this just looking like it's welded on by just like sharpening up these edges, or we can embed it directly into the mesh. I think I'm just going to have it look like it's embedded rather than actually embedding it. That'll be a little more efficient on our geometry and will also look quite nice as well. Alright, so let's make sure that it is fully up and out. Grab these, pull those down a little. Like so. Right, we're going to select these and move them up, and then we're going to stick them down onto that surface. Alright, and then just mount it on that back piece there, and that should be fine like that. Okay, now one thing I've noticed is that I haven't applied the mirror on this piece yet, so I'm going to make sure I do that. As So we only want this on one side. Okay. The other thing is, this piece here is intersecting with the guns at the moment. So I need to fix up that. So I might see if I can just origin to geometry. And select these, bring them to that. Before I do that, however, we're going to go Alt-P, clear and keep transformation, and then we will parent them. That way we can move this entire region around by itself. Right. That was the wrong button to press. Alright. Move. I wanted to press M on this, so which is now not working. First time I've ever had the keyboard stop working. One moment while I file, save, and nope, alright. Okay, let's start up Blender again. That was rather unusual. Okay, so we're going to put that onto another layer there. Into this layer. Okay, and this one here we're going to edit. So add an edge loop in here. Make sure we apply that mirror first. And to delete those faces. So that we get a nice gap there for our mesh. Okay. So with that there, we can sharpen it up. And we do get some creases here, but that's not too much of a problem. We're just seeing how we can alright. So there's one way to reduce your poly count a little, just to have a tiny notch on each side there. And you can even go a step further to slide this all the way over to there. And bring it back a little. And we get this sort of a section coming around. That'll be fine for now. We might come and do some topology work a little later when we start sculpting. But yeah, it's not a major issue. Okay, so we now have a region here for these bits. Okay, and that's the original piece under there, so we won't worry about that at the moment. Okay. So just looking around this and making sure it looks alright. Definitely got a solid foundation there. I'm not quite sure what it's actually going to be attached to, but we really don't need to worry about how it's attached underneath. Okay, so make sure we move that to 20. I might have already done that, but it's alright. You can never have too many backups. We'll delete these little points that we've got. Okay. And we just want to bring this to be just underneath the mesh. Okay, and to create the hole in the middle here, I'm going to create some edge loops either side of the hole. So we've got one there, we've got one over there. And we want to delete the region of the hole. So about that much should be fine. Just extrude that in. Delete the faces. We'll just sharpen that up a little. Alright, and if we bring back our engine, there you go, you can actually see the engine through the framework there. So if the camera does get close enough to see it as it passes through, it will just see about this much. Assume, it'll see the wheels and stuff in there as well. We will have an interior coming, so at this angle it won't see the fuel at the back, it will see everything else really. So that's all our panels back there. And why have I got to make sure that one's on the right layer. That is on the right layer. Okay, so that's looking about right like that. Okay, so this piece is going to be attached directly onto that. This bit here we'll pull up a fraction. That'll be fine like that. Let's just add a little vent grill thing there. Okay, so the one last thing that we've got to do here is connect up our ammunition slot here into something. So currently there's nowhere to fuel, or no ammunition getting into this. So if we come to the back, I want to select these and go Shift D on the Y axis, move across, and we want to delete the mirror. And just plug it into that little hole. Around here somewhere. I want that one. No, I don't want that one. There we go, got it. Okay, so after that little bit of drama, tilt this over a little. Alright, and just like that is fine. So, got that one plugged in now. So what we need is somewhere to put it. It needs to come from somewhere. So something I'm thinking is either we can have a box just stuck on the side with all the ammo coming. We really don't want to have it fed all the way back to the back there. But something else that might be cool, I can select that again, is if we actually fed this into the passenger seat. I'll sort out the twist in a second there, but for now let's just extrude it down to there. And we'll leave it there for now. But what we'll do is we'll come in and we'll stick something in there. So like a box or something on the passenger seat, and we'll just feed this in through the vent there on the front. Alright. Twist this back, and that'll be fine for now anyways. We'll have to redo the twists and things when we do the interior. So yeah, what I also think might be cool is if we grab this, we grabbed our little bit there as well. We go Shift D, upper fraction, and we grab this one. Pull that up, and we plug 2 into it. So you can see that there is 2 separate ones for each barrel. So we'll fix up that a little bit later when we do our interior and we sort out those, but for now that is looking fine. So yeah, there is our armoured vehicle. That's the end of this step for the armour and the weapons. What we're going to do next is we're going to jump into the interior and we're going to detail out all of that.